This is Bishop Michael Burbidge, and you are listening to the Walk Humbly podcast.
Welcome to the Walk Humbly podcast. I'm Billy Atwell, Chief Communications Officer for the Diocese, and your co-host. You are listening to a live on-location recording of the Walk Humbly podcast here at WorkCamp 2021. If you haven't signed up for our e-newsletter, please go to arlingtondiocese.org. And Bishop Burbidge publishes a tweet every day on the gospel of that day. It's a short reflection. You can find him at Bishop Burbidge. Make sure you're following the diocese on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We're posting a lot of content from WorkCamp. It's there already. So if you're hearing this, there's plenty of good stuff to see, good videos and photos that really capture what's happening here. If you have questions for Bishop Burbidge, please email info@arlingtondiocese.org, or you can call 703-831-7013. I welcome your host, Bishop Burbidge. Bishop, how are you doing?
Billy, I'm doing great. It was so inspiring and uplifting to be with our young people last night and again today, and to be joined by four of our wonderful young people from the diocese here today on the podcast. I'm sure our listeners will really enjoy getting to know them.
What was last night like for you?
Last night was wonderful because it's really, even though I've been visiting our schools and parishes, last night was actually the first time in quite a while that I walked into a room and there's over 300 plus kids, young people all together without the social restrictions and the masks, and to see their excitement and to hear their enthusiasm. It was just uplifting. I have to tell you, I went home just so filled with energy, and that night is usually the night too, which is very prayerful. There's a Eucharistic adoration in which our young people can spend time quiet with the Lord after working for a full day, and then we had about 18 priests, 45 priests throughout the diocese last night were available for the celebration of the Sacrament of Penance.
That's wonderful.
It really was. It was just a great night.
Because the priests haven't had a lot of opportunities to get together either through COVID and everything. So it's kind of nice for them to come together and obviously in service to the young folks there.
That's for sure.
That's very good. So can you believe we're back at WorkCamp already? I couldn't believe a year had passed since the last one.
I know, because you think about where we were this time last year, and we had some local efforts and diocesan efforts, but it wasn't our typical WorkCamp. But the fact that we're, thank the good Lord for giving us the gift to persevere, to be back together. We're also mindful of people who have died this past year, still suffering, so we continue to pray for all of them. But thank the good Lord. We're made to be in communion. And I even hear from our young people how challenging it was not to be together. So thank the good Lord we're here now.
Absolutely. So you're going to be heading out to sites here over the next day or two to see some of the work that's happening around the diocese. So this year's a little bit different, and Kevin Boley is going to take us through that in a minute. But what is, thinking back to past years, what are some of the kind of memorable moments for you of the young people serving and carrying out these works of mercy?
Yeah, first of all, is that they work hard.
Yeah, right.
They work very hard. It's a long day, and it's heavy duty lifting many times, and that's why Kevin probably explains better, but that's why we have expertise on the sites with with young people, construction experts and things like that, because it's pretty technical, it's pretty hard work, and they accomplish by the end of the week. Some major accomplishments, improving the facilities and the homes and situations in which people are living. Many people who are in need probably could not get this work done otherwise. So that's always a highlight for me. See them working together. These are, they're often joined together as teams, not necessarily with their best friends, but with young people from around the diocese. So that reminds us that we're a diocesan family too. And I guess one of the highlights too is to see the appreciation of the people who are benefiting from the work, because what's really unique about the WorkCamp is that our young people also engage with the people they're helping and serving. And I think sometimes the people who benefit from the work appreciate more the opportunity to get to know such wonderful young people, which really gives them hope hope for the future of our world. That there's so many nice young people who just want to do good and to serve.
And it's interesting because we'll interview a lot of the folks that are being helped, but the news media will come off and interview them. And that's one of the takeaways I get from seeing the interviews is they thought they were going to be served with a wheelchair ramp or a patched hole in the roof or whatever it might be, but it seems like they were fed so much more emotionally and spiritually in the end. Like the work was almost the extra. What they got just in seeing young people want to come out and serve and help them, and that expression of God's love really seems to carry more than the work in the end, which is miraculous.
I think that's exactly right. It's the encounter, right?
Exactly. So Kevin Boley, we've got Kevin Boley here with us. So Kevin, for those who are hearing about WorkCamp for the first time, or maybe they're not too familiar, if you could take us through kind of the background of what it's intended to do.
Sure. Thank you, Billy, and thank you, Bishop. So WorkCamp is a program that's been in the diocese since 1989. It actually was called Hammer Time the first year. So those of you that recognize that reference there, that's kind of a throwback. But it pretty quickly switched over to WorkCamp. And so for all these years, it's been a diocesan program, which makes it beautiful because it's not just our kids going to serve outside of the diocese, it's always within the diocese. And so we take a big school typically, and the young people come, and it is a camp traditionally where you're spending a week together in community. And as you said, Bishop, community is such a big part of what WorkCamp is. And so we built up about 2 years ago. We were up to about 1,200 people all coming together, staying in one school for an entire week. And they would serve at 160 different projects across the diocese. 50 parishes in the diocese would be involved. And these young people would be going out and serving on work crews. And each work crew consists of an adult leader to kind of work with the young people, but then also a contractor, a person that has the expertise to do the work. And so we've accomplished all kinds of amazing projects over the years, and we've replaced entire trailers in 1 week. We've built roofs, tons of windows, and our whole goal is to make homes warmer, safer, and drier. So that's a traditional work camp, but then you enter into COVID times. And so last year, we really transitioned to almost a completely virtual experience. Young people were able to serve at home and in their parishes, but everything was outdoors. And then all the evening program was done online. And so we did that, and it worked. It was it worked out last year. We did the best we could with what we had. And so this year, as the planning was starting, we had to start this planning months ago. And so then it became the question of, well, where are we going to be in June? And so we had to kind of look into that crystal ball a little bit and figure out where we're going to be. And so that's why this year we decided to still be doing camp parish-based. But then in the evenings, we figured and we hoped and prayed that we'd be able to gather together. And so that's where we are this year. So this year's WorkCamp, we have actually 6 locations across the diocese let me take a step back. So first, the young people wake up in their own beds. They go to Mass in their own parishes in the morning, and then they're put into groups, and then they work in their communities. So they're working some at their parishes, some in the residents that live around their parishes. And then in the evening, they all come together at one of our 6 locations. And so those 6 locations are O'Connell High School, Paul VI High School, Good Shepherd, which is over in Alexandria, Holy Family, which is down in Woodbridge. And then there's a large group of 6 parishes meeting down in Fredericksburg, and then one meeting out in Winchester. So there's actually 6 sites in the evening where all these young people come together. And so this year we have about 650 young people all coming together at one of those various locations, and then about another 200 adults.
That's very good. And Kevin, we talked a lot about it's not just about service, but it's also about serving God's people in prayer. So tell our listeners a little bit about that.
Yeah. So everything is built off of, we try to begin the whole week talking about Acts 2:42, that we look at the early church, the way that the early church lived. And so they broke bread together, they shared everything in common, they lived in community. And as a result of that, what happened? The community grew, and there was great joy. And so we hear that's the way that Christ's early church started. And so that's what we're trying to replicate here at WorkCamp. We call it an intentional Christian community. And so yes, the service is a big part of what's happening here, but the service isn't just because we want to go out and be do-gooders. We're going out to serve our fellow community, our fellow Christians, and so that's the whole reason that we're going out to serve. And we think that that's helping young people to have a transformative, a conversion experience in their lives. So yeah, each day begins with Mass, and then throughout the day there's different prayer experiences, and we actually ask them to invite the resident, the person they're working with. If they want to join them for lunch and be a part of that lunchtime discussion, please do. Then even on the drives to and from their projects, we have little devotionals, things they can talk about. And then they experience prayer in the evening. We have adoration, like you said last night, Bishop. There's confessions throughout the week. And then at night, they get back into their parish groups, and we give them questions and things to discuss about the theme for the day and the theme for the week. So everything is wrapped up in prayer throughout the entire week.
I know our listeners want to hear from our young people, but if I could just ask you one more question. First of all, to thank you, Kevin, and your entire team. I know this. As soon as this work camp is finished, you begin next year's work camp. It demands that kind of work. So thank you and your team for your incredible service. But you've been doing this a while. How about like in your own faith life? How has work camp helped or shaped or formed you?
Yeah, it truly is. It's a community. I mean, so many of the people that are coming to volunteer at WorkCamp, they've been coming for years and years, and we can look back at the T-shirts we have from 15 years ago, and we just remember that experience. And so it really is, I believe, what Christ intended, that we would be gathering in these communities and in our parishes and serving one another. And so that just fills me. To me, it's one of the best experiences of church, I think, because I'm with the same people year in and year out, and we all have this common vision, this common goal of serving and of working with young people. And now, as a parent, I have 2 dads here at WorkCamp, and so in many ways, it's also become I want this for my kids. I want to pass this on. And so even last night at O'Connell, I'm seeing my kids out there experiencing something that was transformative in my life, and God willing, now it's going to be transformative in their lives as well.
That's great. That is wonderful. Well, thanks again, Kevin.
Thank you, Bishop.
Very good. All right, thanks, Kevin, very much, and for all your work. So we'll get our teens here set up, but while we're doing that, Bishop, you've, like you mentioned, been real connected with the youth throughout the pandemic, going to schools and stuff. What are some of the things that you learned from them and kind of witnessed in their experiences through the last year?
Well, I would just say their desire, their zeal to serve. I mean, when you think about it, this is a summer, right? It's middle of June, and these young people have lots of opportunities to do many things. And the fact that I see young people throughout this diocese saying, well, I'm going to give a week to work hard, to serve, and to build community. I don't know. It just gives me such hope, and just is so uplifting to see. And and I look at these young people, and I think I can see that they have bright and promising futures, and that God has big plans for them. And I just pray daily for them that they're listening to where the Lord's leading them and how He wants them to use their gifts and talents.
Very good. Well, I got an easier question for you now. So if you were working on one of the sites and you had to have in your hand a drill, a saw, or a paintbrush, and to work accordingly, which one would you be? Which one would you choose?
I would say a paintbrush.
All right.
I am not the most handy man, so probably I would do the least damage with a paintbrush.
Very good. All right. So if you each could introduce yourselves, we'll start over here and kind of work your way around. Just introduce your name and your parish.
I'm Sophia. I'm from St. Agnes Parish.
Robert Suhita, also from St. Agnes Parish.
Xavier Cherico, also from St. Agnes.
And Olivia Chiappetta, also from St. Agnes.
So our listeners can tell I was at St. Agnes this morning for Mass, and so we have 4 of our St. Agnes young people here. Well, thank you, everyone. It's great to have you here, and thanks for doing this. So how many work camps have you been involved in? Can you tell me?
This is my 3rd work camp.
3rd? Wow, Robert.
This is also my 3rd, yes.
Great.
This is my 2nd.
2nd.
This is also my 2nd year.
That's great. So you all came back. So that's a good
Yes.
sign, And I mentioned to the people listening that, you are giving a week of your summer, it's valuable time, to do work camp. Why? Why do you want to do this? I think our listeners would really appreciate hearing from you. Maybe you could begin, Olivia.
Sure. Well, last year I came into it not really sure how I was going to like camp. But I had a really good experience last year, and coming into it this year, I've just had a lot of fun. And getting to work with everybody and doing it for God and offering it up really makes a big difference in my life.
That's great. How about you, Xavier?
Yeah, well, I also had a really positive experience last year. I mean, that was my first work camp, and even though it was in the middle of a pandemic, it was still a lot of fun. And so this year, I was like, okay, well, I want to do it again. And so, yeah, and there's just something really special about just helping other people and just spending time with people you don't normally hang out with. And then at the end, there's a big community. So just a lot of fun times.
That's great. And Robert, you're like one of the veterans, 3 years, right? So
Yes, sir.
how come?
The first one I did was back in 2018, my freshman year. And I remember distinctly my mother saying, "You're doing this." And of course, it's my mother. So I'm gonna do it. And when I first got there, I wasn't really too excited about it. I just put the mentality of, I'm going to get through it and it's going to be it. But by the end of the week, I distinctly remember not wanting it to end and wanted it to be one more day to go back to the work site or stay with the crew a little bit longer. And that's what drove me to come back the second year. And definitely the second year was definitely a more religious experience for me. I definitely grew a lot more in the faith. I began to understand and ask more questions about different aspects of the faith that normally I just brushed aside. And so, I've been coming back each year, and it's been a wonderful experience.
And that's one of the opportunities you have, right? Because you engage with priests, you engage with counselors, youth ministers, youth directors, and where you can discuss issues like with the faith.
Right, WorkCamp gives a lot of opportunities to discuss with, all the adult leaders and priests as well, and then also your crewmates and your fellow parishioners, and you're able to develop not only your own understanding, but also learn from others of what their experiences with the faith are.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. And Sophia?
Well, I keep coming back to WorkCamp. Probably my favorite aspect is, like Mr. Bully said, the intentional Christian community aspect of WorkCamp. I love being surrounded by my peers who are on fire for the faith and want to serve the Lord in the community together and want to pray together and grow in their faith together and strengthen each other by this Christian community.
Yeah, and that's definitely part of the whole reason we have this work camp, right? For that type of community. What impact do you think this experience, lasting impact that you think this experience will have on you? Something that maybe this is something I'm just going to take with me as I move forward in life as a lasting impact or memory.
I think a lasting impact for me would definitely be the engagement I've had with our other peers. I think it's important to be open with each other, and I've really learned that throughout this time at WorkCamp, especially this year. It's only day 3, and having those devotion times has really helped me to open up, and I think that going into college next year, it'll help me be open with others, and we can all share each other's experiences so we can grow
That's
more.
a great point. That's a very good point. How about you, Xavier?
Honestly, for me, I think one of the most lasting impacts would be just the beauty of daily mass. I don't know, just something about going in and just starting your day, your work day especially, with just praying to God and then just celebrating mass. It's just really special. And I mean, I don't have my license yet, so I can't always just drive to daily mass, but whenever I go, it's just an awesome experience.
It's a great way to begin the day, isn't it?
Yes.
Offer everything I'm about to do, Lord. I offer to you and I call upon your divine assistance, right? Robert, how about for you?
I would say probably the biggest takeaway is confidence in my faith. So often going to a public school, you end up feeling like you're the only one who's Catholic or who really takes their faith seriously, and you're often the only one posed with questions. But going to WorkCamp each year, you see that not only there are a lot of people who agree with your faith or who believe in it, but it's people your age and people who you can relate with and people that you can do things with. And it makes it a lot easier and a lot more doable to remain strong in the faith and to expand on your faith.
That's great. And how about you, Sophia?
Well, WorkCamp has given me a lot of opportunities to get out of my comfort zone and do things that I wouldn't have otherwise had the opportunity to do, like from using power tools even to our crews have like leadership roles. And last year I was my crew's devotion leader, so I helped lead our discussions and prayers, and I'd never really done something like that before, but coming out of it I learned a lot of skills about like how to lead discussions and be a leader and and just be together and praying with people. And yes, I think I've grown a lot in confidence as well with a lot of things through working.
That's like a practical outcome too. See, maybe that's maybe why I'm not so handy. I didn't have work camp when I was in high school. How about we come back to you, Sophia? We'll go around the other way this time and ask you a question. What has been the reaction of the people or the families that you're helping? Does anything stand out for you in meeting, the people that benefit from your work?
Yeah, so the first year I did work camp, we built a wheelchair ramp for a woman, and I will never forget the look on her face when just seeing her throughout the week. She was just so grateful, not only for the work, but just for us being there and inviting her to join us in our devotions and in lunch and for our company and for our prayers for her. And it was just so special being able to see her and talk to her. And yeah, I'll never forget her.
Sure, I'm sure that touched your heart, right? How about you, Robert?
Similar experience in my second year. The woman that we were fixing her house for, she at first she was a little timid and shy, and she didn't want to come out the first couple days, and she was, she just stayed in her house for the most part. But by the end of the week, she was basically involved in everything that we were doing, and she was loving every part of it. And she said at the very end, her biggest regret was not coming out in the beginning. Because we were some of the most caring and awesome people that she'd ever met. So,
that's incredible. That's really nice to see. Xavier?
Well, this being my second year, so both years of work camp have been at the parish. And so there's not really one specific person we're doing the work at the parish for. Right. But just, I don't know, it's just really cool after you're finished and you see whatever you built, and then you see people use it, and it's like, oh, I did that, like, we did that. And just, I don't know, it's just something you just, how do I put this? Just for the community, it's just fun to see all the work you've done, and it pays off.
Yeah, a great sense of accomplishment. Olivia?
I'm also in the same boat as Xavier. I did it last year during COVID. But I think that the work that we do, we don't see the person that we're helping, at least for my group, but in a way that gives you a deeper faith in the work that you're doing. And then also, you have people around the parish thanking you for your work, and they seem so proud of having a community of young kids being able to really fix up things that need fixing.
That's a great insight, though, when you think about it, because sometimes we never know the impact of our work, or sometimes we don't see the immediate results of it. But God promises us that if we do it for Him and His glory, He'll use that work in ways that we can't imagine, right? So can I also ask you maybe a non-work camp question? Robert, we'll begin with you on this one then. How has this past year changed your perspective on what matters most in life? That's a good question, isn't it?
Definitely with, because I was a senior, so I've been doing a lot of college application processes and a lot of applications, and it's very easy to get lost into a routine with school and college and a whole bunch of other stuff that you have to deal with, sports. You end up getting into a routine of, you have to do this and then this and then this next, and it seems like before you blink the day is gone, and you really don't have time to think. And I noticed that at least with our youth group, every Tuesday night, that was one of the real chances for me every week to really wind down, truly without technology or something like that, but just wind down and actually talk to people and to be able to enjoy a time without having to worry about some due date or some practice that you've got coming up. And I've really noticed that friendship and a community is one of those important things to keep yourself in a healthy relationship with God.
Yeah, that's a great blessing, isn't it? Are you able to tell us where you're going next year? Did you figure that out?
I recently got accepted to Old Dominion University for the Naval ROTC program there. So I'll be going there for the next 4 years and hopefully serving the country for a long time after that.
Well, congratulations. That's
Thank
great
you.
news, and thank you for that willingness to serve our nation.
Thank you.
And we'll be praying for you. Xavier, how about something that this past year has taught you what's important in life?
Definitely for me, and I think a lot of people have experienced this, but just the importance of family and especially like faith. Because, well, before the pandemic, I mean, I'd go to youth group, whatever. It was like, oh, I know some people. It was fun. But then, I don't know, something right when like all the quarantine and restrictions happened, I just immediately just fell in love with my faith again. And I mean, a lot of people started doing less because of all the restrictions, but like I felt like I was starting to do like more. Like I joined the Bible studies. Robert was in it. I'd participate more at mass. If they needed an extra altar server, I'd help out, and like I don't know, and especially like parents. So I guess for a lot of us, like your parents would start working at home, and just spending that quality time with your parents, especially if they work long hours, it's changed a lot of how we value our family and faith, and I think it's been pretty good.
Yeah, there's been some quality time together that, you know, you realize how important it is, and how it's sometimes we take those we love the most sometimes for granted. But I think this year, as you said, really has helped us to realize what a great blessing and gift that God has given to us and each other. Olivia, what would you say?
Well, Bishop, I know you've mentioned this before in prior conversations, but I've learned that we're not in control.
Yeah.
So I, at the very beginning of last year in the summertime, I really learned how to like grow in my faith, especially since my life kind of stopped, like the busyness stopped. So I had that time to really focus on God. And I'm really thankful for my sister also, who is also growing in her faith. So it helped to just be able to pray with her in the evenings and really stick to it every night.
Wow, that's great that you had that kind of support for each other. And we did learn that, didn't we? That
Yeah.
we're not in control. And
Yeah.
sometimes that's one of the hardest things to acknowledge. But even the saints tell us that all the time, that one of the greatest ways that we grow in holiness is to surrender. Is actually not to control, but to surrender our lives to God. And there we find freedom. And there we find the peace and the strength to endure. So thanks for sharing that. I appreciate that. Sophia, how about for you?
Well, like everyone else said, the pandemic really eliminated a lot of distractions and like busyness from my life. So I had a lot more opportunities to be still, and especially to be grateful for what I do have, especially my family and my friends and my faith and the sacraments. And so yeah, this past year has taught me a lot about gratitude and slowing down.
Yeah, two important lessons for all of us, and including myself and everyone who's listening too, I am sure. So for a young person, one of your peers or colleagues out there who isn't sure if they want to come next year to WorkCamp, but they're listening to you right now, what would you say to encourage them to participate? Besides Robert saying your mother told you to do so. What would you say to them, Robert?
It's one of the best experiences you'll ever have. The first 2 years of mine, like I still remember the weeks very, very clearly. I still look forward if hopefully doing a work camp in the future, whether I'm a helper or an adult leader or whoever. But it's an amazing experience, and it's definitely something that not many people get to do, and you're overwhelmed with faith and with joy, with happiness the whole week. It seems like nothing can go wrong that whole week.
That's great. Anyone else?
Yeah, I know that on paper it doesn't sound very fun. Working in the sun for 8 hours, no phone, you're with strangers a lot of the time. But what's not on the paper is all of the little moments that really make it worth it. Like just sitting there sanding something, and then you're having a conversation with someone that you wouldn't have had a conversation with otherwise, and talking about your faith. Or last night, I remember my crew and I, we were just looking at the sky together and admiring how beautiful it was, or having that moment of conversion and adoration or something. So yeah, it doesn't sound great, but once you're here, it's great. So you should do it.
That's wonderful.
I think also just hearing it from somebody your own age and somebody who's already been through the work camps, they can really tell you their own personal experiences. And I think also it's just great to be able to connect with people that you normally wouldn't connect with when you're placed in your groups. You're kind of all in the same boat. You may not have spoken with each other before, so I think reaching out to everybody, you really learn to love your crew.
Thank you.
Yeah, honestly, the only advice I'd give is just try it out. Just try it once, because I'm sure, like what everyone else was saying, it doesn't sound like the most amazing thing, but when you're there, it's just, I don't know, the atmosphere changes, you change, like everyone changes, and you're all united together in your faith and for your community. And it's always just comforting knowing that you're there for a purpose. You're not wasting time. You're not there just sitting there. You're working on something to help someone or help a group of people, and it's just the feeling you get afterwards when the project is done is just, it's awesome.
Well, I am sure, like myself, the people who are listening to this podcast have really appreciated this opportunity to get to know the four of you. You're very inspiring, gifted young people. And as I said in the beginning, God has special plans for you. But you also represent the many other young people who are participating in this work camp, who have the same desire to grow closer to Christ and to serve others. And I want to thank you on behalf of the entire diocese and all of your friends and peers, not so much only for what you're doing and what you're accomplishing this week, because you are accomplishing a great deal, but also to thank you so much for your willingness to share your love for the Lord and your desire to grow in your faith, and the joy that you're finding in working together as a community and serving one another. You're certainly an inspiration to me, and I know probably to all those who are listening to us today. So really thank you for joining this podcast and for sharing your thoughts with us, and wish you continued blessings throughout this week, and asking God to protect you and your friends, and I am sure that with His help you will produce abundant fruit in ways that you can't even imagine. So, Billy, thank you for letting me ask the questions this time. Usually you're the one asking all the questions and grilling Bishop Bourbon. So
well, I'm a sucker for a hot mic, so yeah. So something I wanted to raise, because as I'm listening, these are very powerful experiences, and the work sites are doing, a lot of different projects. Like Kevin said, it's like, warmer, safer, and drier is the goal. Well, that's not inexpensive, especially with lumber prices the way they are and the different materials. And, so there are volunteers here, but there's a major cost to WorkCamp and providing all this service. And that's paid for because there are generous donors throughout the diocese who give to the Bishop's Lenten Appeal. And through that, we're able to fund this. I figured you want to share a message with them directly.
Yeah, thank you so much. When we do our Bishop's Lenten Appeal, each year we do talk about the 40 plus ministries that benefit from that, assisting and helping people in need. But I'm sure as our listeners hear our four young people speak today, to realize that their generosity and goodness help to provide them with this experience, I'm sure it gives them, motivation and reason to help the diocese in such a powerful way. But I want to echo those words, Billy, of thanks to all the faithful of our diocese who in so many ways support our ministries. Thanks everyone.
And Kevin Boley, runs our Office of Youth, Young Adult, and Campus Ministry, and that that office as well. They work on this year-round. They're funded by the Bishop's Lenten Appeal. If you want to learn more about that Office of Youth Ministry and the various events and programs they put on throughout the year, go to arlingtondiocese.org/youth-ministry. You can also find them on Facebook, Arlington Youth Ministry. They're on Twitter as well. You can find also a lot from this week on the diocesan Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter accounts. A lot of great content going up there constantly from throughout the diocese. So if you've got a child working on a crew, you just might see them there. You never know, see how they're doing. But again, thank you to everyone who gives to the Bishop's Lenten Appeal. You make all of this work possible. Any final thoughts, Bishop, and if you would send us off with your blessing?
Right. No, thanks again to our 4 young people, and thanks to Kevin and his office. And know that I'll be praying for you. It's day 3, right? So pray for you for the rest of the week, that through the intercession of Mary, our mother, and St. Joseph, the worker, that God will bless you and your friends and carrying out the tasks that you set forth this week, and that in a very special way, as you continue to move forward in your life, that you will always ask the Holy Spirit to lead and to guide you, so that you may always be doing God's will and saying yes to God's plan for you. Because as you know, it's in that yes that we do find our joy, and we do grow in holiness. So thank you so much, my dear young friends, and we pray for each other, and we pray that together we will walk humbly with our God. Thank you for listening to the Walk Humbly podcast. Make sure you check out more episodes on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, and Spotify. You can follow me on Twitter at Bishop Burbidge, where I offer gospel reflections each morning and share photos and updates of what is going on in the Diocese of Arlington. Stay up to date with news, event information, and inspirational content by subscribing to our e-newsletter at arlingtondiocese.org.